Welcome and welcome back to the Light Renegades. My name is Starr. Thank you so much for joining me today, everyone. Today's energetic update video comes with me having to really open up and have a very raw expression of something that has been really difficult and challenging for me to experience in the most recent weeks. So my final skinny pig, Piggly, was poorly. He got really poorly over the past couple of weeks, and he was not really responding to wanting to eat, wanting to drink, but he was still trying to be his usual self, run around, do all the things that he could, but definitely was slowing down. He was of age, so I was trying to prepare myself for that expression, and I lost his brother in March, so it's been a difficult expression to just have that energy, and it was really difficult when I lost Coco, and I shared this before on the channel because they were very much connected to aspects of spiritual warfare at that time, so it was completely heartbreaking to see what was going on and to see their little life be mirroring out something that I was also experiencing at the exact same time, but knowing that the soul came in to be able to help me. So it was a very different expression with Piggly. It was a very trying time, and something happened that I just didn't ever truly expect to happen, and it put me in a situation because I'm very much a soul that works on energy, works on frequency. It's what I do every day with regards to my practices of healing and my work. So when I had to take all of this from a very energetic standpoint, that's when things started to become very real. So Piggly wasn't really eating. I decided to take him to the vets. It turns out that he had some cysts that I did know about, but I was told to just send him healing in the most natural way, so I didn't take him to the vets before then. I knew that something had shifted in the way that he was behaving, and I went to the vets and they drained these cysts, and I took him home, and he started to take a massive decline in that. They'd given him all the meds that they could in terms of pain, and I was giving him healing. So many sent healing. Thank you so much to those souls that were very close to me in that expression. I know that he felt it and he was experiencing that, but somewhere I think I knew that this soul was coming to the last days of their life. But the last time that I took them to the vets, I had to make the decision of having them later rest at the vets, which then left me in a situation where I just didn't ever think that I would be put in a situation to be in control of something's life to that degree. And it became very real and true because, somewhere I've been vegan for a real long time, and my ethos with that was the fact that I couldn't kill something with my bare hands, so to me, I don't have the right to eat it. And there is no one right way to live this life, live this path. However you choose to live it is entirely up to you, but that was my ethos in life. So for me to then have to be faced with the situation of potentially putting this soul's life to rest because they were somewhere in a space of suffering, but also feeling like I wanted them to exit this life on their own terms, in their own way. And this is when everything gets super expansive, and this is where it gets very difficult to try and explain the life that I live, but also I'm sharing this because I hope this helps others to see that everything is happening all at the exact same time. And this is the energy that MJ, that Love, shared in the first video with them that I've just posted. So if you haven't checked that out, please do if that feels in alignment for you. But this idea that everything is happening at the exact same time is very real and true. And it's this expression of, I knew somewhere Piggly was suffering. He, wasn't eating. He had a temperature constantly. He was, not passing any food, all of those types of things. At the same energetic standpoint, I could feel this little life and soul of a being beating. I had this living creature in my arms that, I would consider to be my child this lifetime. And it was incredibly difficult to hold them in that expression. And then somewhere know that in a higher frame of existence, they are a living being somewhere else that very much partakes life on a ship somewhere, and decided to come down and be a guide for me. Not only had they been with me in this lifetime, but also previous lifetimes as, past connections in terms of partners with me. And the same goes for Coco. And when Coco passed, I immediately felt a hand on my back, and them as a being, and them saying that it was okay and it was their time, and explaining to me what they had done in terms of the spiritual warfare and how they had helped me, and that expression, and me knowing that these two little souls that found their way into my life. And I woke up in the middle of the night. It would be maybe 4.5 years ago now, and I just decided that I wanted to get skinny pigs. And if you don't know what they are boiled guinea pigs. And I don't know where this expression come from. It just came over me, and then I was absolutely hounding down trying to find the two that I knew was supposed to be mine. And it took a couple of months for me to exactly know which two I was going to get, and there were so many synchronicities that aligned for me to know that they were supposed to be mine. And you know, the way that it all came about, I just knew that these were the two souls that I was supposed to be having this connection with. And little did I know at that time that it was such a soul connection. I just felt like they were supposed to be in my care, but little did I know that actually they were caring for me the entirety of this time, and they've been with me through some incredibly terrible times, but also incredibly, you know, treacherous things that I've had to overcome on this path of ascension, of awakening. And now I see that they were with me through all of those shifts, these little beings that just held so much light, so much joy, and so much laughter for me. They were there to support me through those times. And now seeing where, you know, I'm at a space where I'm ready to pivot, and I'm very much ready to support myself in a much different way, and seeing that there has been a graduation in that energy. And what they were sharing to me was that now's my time. I've now exited some of those spaces, and they were ready to put those chapters to close for me. So I had this being in my arms that was very much a soul that I knew, that I've known from previous lives, and they were saying, you know, that it's time for me. But in the time in the 3D, it was very difficult to have this little being hearts beating in my hands and say, I'm ready to let you go. And then to have them, you know, in my arms in that expression. And it was really traumatizing, if I'm being completely honest with you. I wasn't really told exactly how it was going to happen. I was told that he was going to be sedated, and then that they would come in and, you know, they would inject him. But what I didn't realize was that it's quite a big needle that they have to inject small pets with, because they can't find a vein. So it was incredibly traumatic to have to hold this little life, say goodbye to them. And I think somewhere for a little while I've been knowing that I have been saying goodbye to them. I spent a lot of time cuddling them, but they also wanted to just be, you know, on their own, as animals do. You want to just go and find a place to rest when you know that your time is coming, or it's close to coming. And something that I shared over on Instagram was that a few nights before this time, I saw that what I consider to be the angel of death. And it's, you know, it very much comes forward as a fleeting image to me. It's an expression of a being absolutely cloaked from head to toe in black, and they come and then they share a message and they leave. But I see them as just a flash, and then they go. And then the message comes through for them, and then I know that, you know, a soul is soon to pass. This is something that I've experienced a few times on this pathway. When I was helping souls exit into another dimension, into another space, I've been holding a channel of light for them to be able to see into the other side. And, you know, I'm very grateful to have had those experiences with some incredible souls. And, you know, I see it as a complete gift on this path. But I knew that Piggly's life was coming to an end, so I had to hold this little being in my arms as, you know, the vet stepped forward and injected directly into their heart. And it was a very surreal moment. I was in what felt like I was in there for an hour at this whole expression, deciding, you know, having my tears, holding them, saying goodbye to them, speaking with them as another being, with my higher self, making sure that it was time for them to exit. And in that moment of them just being a very small creature in my arms, and, you know, having the vet inject them, it's when it becomes very real and true that a life and a soul is there, and then it's just very not. And I could see the bigger gesture that this was giving me. I could see the bigger understanding that this was giving me, but not just for myself, but also the vet that was there, bless her heart. And looking back now, I think she was in an expression of not having to experience something like this to the degree that she did, because poor little Piggly let out a little yelp and was trying to pull the needle out. I think that he is a very strong-willed soul, and, you know, he was very much still strong, even though he was so weak somewhere, so poorly. When he didn't want any more food, I was trying to feed him water, trying to feed him, he just didn't want it, and he was still very strongly pushing me away. So I think he thought he worked through the sedative. I think that he managed to push through when he was in pain. So I think that was quite a shock to the vet. And then she started to cry, which then made me cry, and she was trying to justify, you know, him yelping, and I had to very much hold her and say that it was okay, and, you know, there was nothing more that she could have done. Like, it just happened to be that way. And, you know, he was very strong-willed, so I think he fought to the very end somewhere. And I think that I started to realize that that's what I was putting an end to. This little being somewhere knew that they were fighting for me to you know, to stay alive somewhere. And I had to make that decision that I was ready to let them go, because I'm now ready for a different way of existence. I'm now ready to stand on my own 2 feet somewhere too, emotionally, because these souls are holding a lot of energy for me too. And I'm starting to see that, you know, there are so many ways that teams of light give us energy. There are so many ways that teams of light gift us this expression of support here, and pets are a massive one of that. And there is so much more to having, you know, a pet than perhaps some are in the understanding of. So I hope that this has given some insight to some. I feel like I'm sharing it because I think some in the most recent weeks I've been having to make some pretty tough decisions, but knowing that the choices that are made aren't just a decision for you, but also for so many. And looking back on that whole situation, I can now see where the vet was having to go through her own journey, and that Piggly's expression was having to go through a whole journey of that in the 3D, but also in the other realms of existence. He's now ready to be a different form and guide, and not just to myself, but to others out there. And that has a knock-on effect. And I think sometimes we're not in true awareness of exactly what we are doing in the times that we have to make decisions, but knowing that any decision that we make is coming from the highest expression of heart and soul for us, that it can't be wrong. And I've been learning a lot of lessons of letting go, and letting these two souls go, transition and pass has been a massive part of this idea of least resistance, and just allowing for myself to completely release and surrender and say that I'm ready for different aspects of my life to be stepping forward. I'm ready to be living in a very different way. And I think many souls have been feeling this at a heart-centric space in the most recent weeks, and having to make some really tough decisions about your life. And I shared this over with the Light Renegades, and I said, I'm really having to think about my life and what I want, and I've made some massive decisions on things that I just didn't think that I would, and in some ways that I've made some decisions that I never thought that I would, but knowing that in my heart and soul that it's been the best for me, but also so many around me, and seeing that there is also a gift when you do make a decision, when you have to make a tough decision, when you have to put an end to something, or you have to say, okay, this is definitely not what I want. That is also gifting so many others in that expression, the right to them own selves, the right to their own expression too. And I'm starting to see just how much a single decision has such a ripple effect out into the collective. So I think this is definitely a message of authenticity that I've been banging on about, specifically over on my Instagram for a couple of weeks now. But this idea that authenticity is now ruling. This is something that Teams of Light shared to me at the beginning of 2025, because the old paradigm has collapsed. So many of you are in awareness of this, who've been feeling this, seeing this being played out. But now we are stepping into the time where it's so important to be moving from a heart-centric space, because that has a ripple out to the collective. And the minute that you decide to not choose self, in the highest vibration of all, that's when you start to get into real rocky territory. And that's when it starts to be very disruptive, not just for yourself, but those around you too. So sometimes when you feel like you're making a very selfish decision, when you feel like you are doing something, simply for you, know that that is the best decision for you. And I was very much a soul that didn't think this way at certain moments in my life. I thought that people choosing themselves was selfish. I thought that there had to be massive sacrifices made in order to have what you want, to live the life that you want. And to some degree that is still true. But I think as long as you are stepping forward, trying to do what's best for you, and having the idea of that I'm doing this for the highest good of all, and this is not a space of what do I want to say, sacrificing something one for another. It's not about that. But if you know that you are making a decision from a heart-centered space and saying, okay, I'm making this decision because I know that this is what's best for me, and I'm trying to not hurt anyone else in this process, then you can't be wrong. So I feel like I'm sharing this to let some know that sometimes real tough decisions have to be made. That is a mercy to some, that is a freedom to others, and that is actually a freedom to all of us. So make sure that you are making decisions that are coming from a heart-centered space, but also make sure that you are making the decisions that is going to be the best for you and those around you. This is about thinking outside of just self, but also seeing the wider perspective of that. But sometimes the most selfish decision is actually the most selfless when it comes to the whole entirety of who is going to be benefiting from that decision to step forward in true heart center. And I hope this is making sense, everyone. I'm really trying to fight back the emotions to try and get this message forward, but I felt like I very much had to share it. So it's been a very tender time for me. So apologies to those that have been waiting for my responses. I will make sure to get back to you as soon as possible. But please know that I'm thinking about you all. It's been incredibly difficult to be away from this Light Renegade space. It very much feels like home. It's quite interesting to see how much this has played a huge part of an expression for me. So it's different to be partaking in different spaces and trying to move and work in a different way. But I'm slowly finding my footing, and when it's time I will share the things that I've got going on behind the scenes. But please know I'm very much holding you all in heart, and I hope that you will continue to be sharing yourselves in the most authentic way with yourself and those around you as well, everyone. But I think that best be all for myself today, and thank you to those that have sent consistent love and support. And I know so many of you have found it adorable and something to be partaking in when we used to have my gorgeous little piggies squeaking behind the scenes. And they very much have been my children this lifetime. It's a very strange experience to try and put into words, but the love that you have for some beings, it just doesn't make any sense. It didn't make any sense, the love that I had for them. But knowing that they were meaning so much more to me than just, you know, seemingly pets somewhere. They are soul tribe, they are family, they were beings that I've had lifetime after lifetime with, and they came through in a very, you know, small and strange, peculiar form, but that was what I needed at that time. And, you know, now they get to be a different guide to me in a different way, and that goes for all of these souls that we have connections with, or family, or realm, space and time. There is a lot more that goes on energetically that is connecting to soul connection. So do have that in mind and heart. Perhaps have more compassion as well for others in your space, because somewhere you've chosen this path with them, no matter how treacherous it might seem, no matter how you know, dark it might seem. And there's definitely going to be more from me on this expression, given some things that have been happening in my personal life. So I'll be sharing that when it feels in alignment. But yeah, that's all for myself today. Take care, and thank you for those that have been sending heartfelt messages and well wishes. Yeah, every day is easier, but it was definitely a real tough decision to make in the 3D. You know, 5D and above, it was the right call to make. They asked for that, I asked for that, but yeah, still 3D, it was painful. So this idea that everything is happening all at the exact same time, remember that when you're making decisions, sometimes what might seem like a simple decision perhaps has such an energetic ripple effect. So go easy with self, have more self-compassion, and please make sure that you are completely looking after yourself at this time, you know, mentally, physically, emotionally, taking those rests when you need to. Please staying hydrated, because there was a lot of energy shifts. There's been a lot of alliances that have been made in very different ways behind the scenes. So there's been a lot that we have been having to acclimatize to in very different ways, and some souls in this path are definitely taking different pathways from this moment in time. So if you would like support in your space, please do not hesitate to reach out. That's exactly why I'm here. That's why I'm here, connecting with your teams of light, if you should so choose. But I think that's it for all for today, but I'll be back when it feels in alignment. Take care.